As all members have received a copy of the call of tonight's meeting, the reading of the call will be omitted. Will everyone please rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As all members have received a copy of the minutes of our December 8 meeting, the reading of those minutes will be omitted. Are there any suggested changes to those minutes? Hearing none and absent objection, the minutes as submitted stand adopted upon unanimous consent. Peter Tessie, our first selectman.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator.
Good evening.
Ladies and gentlemen of the RTM. Just two announcements, but before I do, I just want to take a moment of personal privilege to express my deep appreciation and gratitude to all of you who paid your respects to a loyal public servant who passed on December 23rd, and that was our beloved Selectman David Tice. Thank you for your condolences and your support at this difficult time for all of us. There are two meetings coming up I want you to be aware of. The first one is this coming Thursday. It is a special meeting of the Board of Selectmen, and it is being held in concert with the Greenwich League of Women Voters. Its primary purpose is to listen to a presentation by the Greenwich Town Attorney's Office, the Law Department, on the methodologies by which one can go about amending the town charter. This is not a new subject. It's a subject that's been before prior boards, prior RTMs, but we felt it was important, given there's been recurring discussions, to fully understand the unique nature of the Town of Greenwich Charter and its relationship to Connecticut General Statutes. So this program has no specified change in mind, but is purely educational so that we have a clear foundation for those who have an interest. They will understand it, and ideally there will be a document that will be available for future reference. And that's 7:30 p.m. in the Town Hall meeting room. The second meeting is on Monday evening at 7 p.m. It's the First Selectman's Capital Improvement Projects Committee. This will be releasing the proposed draft capital expenditures for fiscal year 15-16. We are in the process of finalizing that. There will be opportunity for public comment prior to my formal submission to the BET. For those who were in attendance in October, we held a similar meeting where we looked at what the proposed 15-16 expenditures were to be in the current year's budget. This will be an update to that. Clearly, there will be some modifications to that, and it will be your opportunity to look at it and also for the public to comment. So again, thank you very much on all three counts. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to welcome in his new position as selectman, and congratulations on obtaining that position, John Toner, former member of District 9. John Toner, our new selectman.
Thank you very much. Greenwich is a great town, and one of the things about Greenwich that I think that is the greatest is the representative town meeting. Here you have 230 residents working together to improve an already high standard of life. I am proud to have served with you, and I thank you for your understanding and your friendship. I especially thank my friends from District 2 who welcomed me onto the RTM and showed me the ropes. And of course, I thank my friends from District 9 who have put up with my quirks and idiosyncrasies these past several years. I look forward to working with you all in my new capacity, and I thank you.
Betsy Fruman, Chair of District 9. Steve Warzoa, Vice Chair.
We of District 9 want to congratulate the town on selecting John Toner. Our Vice Chair, Steve Orizoa, will be delivering the thoughts of the district. But before he takes over, I'm compelled to share with you my wishes for the town. May John bring to town meetings the same logic and thoughtfulness that made him a voice to be listened to at District 9. May John's "we can do this" attitude infect the attitudes of those with whom he will be dealing. May John's warmth and ease of handling people be a tool that can bring harmony. May John's amazing ability to keep District 9 on topic and on time translate to more efficient town meetings. John, we're counting on you. Now,
Steve Orizoa.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, fellow members, town officials, and guests. The members of District 9 would like to take a moment to give thanks to and recognition of a number of people who have helped keep our community strong and cohesive over the past few weeks of loss, of sadness, and yes, of even hope. When Selectman David Tice passed away so unexpectedly on December 23rd, it was a shock to all of us in town government, everyone who knew him, and the entire town that Dave Tice loved so very much. For Selectman Tessie, Selectman Marzullo, we know how strong your sense of loss and grief was and still is. But you both came together, as you so often do, for the sake of our Greenwich family, to help lead us through a period of mourning and remembrance and honoring our late friend. While the task of replacing David Tice is impossible, the task of finding a fitting successor was so easy. Because both of you knew what Dave knew, that what makes our town, and more importantly, our community so great is its people. People who give of themselves selflessly to better so many aspects of our town and to make Greenwich a truly wonderful place to live, work, and raise a family. Dave Tice was one of those people, and John Toner is one too. John Toner's commitment to our town is well known to us in his adopted home of District 9, and we are so happy that we get to share him with the rest of you. Like Dave, John has spent so much of his life giving back to this community. John's knowledge of town government will be a great asset to this Board of Selectmen. As a longtime member of the RTM from both Districts 2 and even more famously District 9, no offense, District 2, his service on the Plan of Conservation and Development's Implementation Committee showed his ability to work with a diverse group of people to tackle complex issues and enhance the quality of life for every single one of our residents. More recently, he was able to call upon his years of professional life in banking and his in-depth knowledge about our assessment process during his service on the Board of Assessment Appeals. Many people may know John from his years with Coloride or seeing him on Saturday mornings at the Greenwich Transfer Station, the dump, at the book swap, where he always had a wonderful story to share and great recommendations on some new reading material. His compassion and his commitment to helping people in need was so clearly evident while serving on the Greenwich Hospital Board of Trustees, where he led a large group of volunteers. John's service to the Republican Party has continued for many years as a member and treasurer of that organization, and has served as a campaign chairman, treasurer, and in various leadership roles on political campaigns for many, many years. Clearly, both in his private life and his public life, John has been an example of some of the best qualities that we look for in a leader, in a role model, and a friend. Now in this role, Selectman Toner, I like the sound of that, Selectman Toner, will be able to call upon a lifetime of friendships, experiences, and knowledge as he works in partnership with First Selectman Tessie and First Selectman Marzullo to make Greenwich even greater. With his trademark humor and humility, we know that Selectman Toner will honor Dave's memory and will serve the Board of Selectmen well. We on District 9 continue to stand ready to work with our friend in his new role, and we congratulate him and wish him very well. John, we are so proud of your service, so proud of your spirit, but most of all, we are so proud to call you our friend. Congratulations.
Chris von Kaiserling, Chair of District 8.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, ladies and gentlemen. Before I convey the tribute from District 8, I want to congratulate Selectman Toner. We consider, in the past, we've had 3 selectmen from District 8 or Coscob, and I know John started in Coscob in the Golden Triangle, and I wanted to congratulate you, and we know him well, and we think you'll do fine. Anything we can do to help. At our regular meeting last Wednesday, District 8 unanimously passed this tribute to David N. Tice, who's one of our own, of course. And I'd like to have it read to you people and to the town and put in the minutes of the meeting. David Noble Tice was a true son of Coscob. As a third-generation native, Mr. Tice not only treasured the many blessings of his hometown, but spent a large part of his life volunteering towards the continuation of those benefits for generations to come. He was the model of a gentleman, ever ready to give a hand where needed, always first to put one at ease. He was everyone's best neighbor, concerned, knowledgeable, and present. Without an ego of his own, he relished the success of others. His pride was in his community and his country. Dave, as he was known to all, was a true leader. First, he led children in their maturing on the athletic field. He believed in playing by the rules and fair play. Then he led adults on the field of life, government, and community. He believed in supporting fully those who provided service and security to the public. David Tice may not have agreed with all, but he gave all his respect and his attention. David Tice's contributions to his town and country are too numerous to itemize here, but they are writ large throughout all facets of our life and village. Above all else, David Noble Tice was a true friend to those who knew him and to those he was yet to meet. District 8 of the RTM moves that these comments be included in the minutes of the meeting as a model for future generations of a real Coscobian. Thank you.
Will the members please rise and join me in a moment of silence in memory of David Tice. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I did notify our committee and district chairs that I am calling a meeting of what we informally refer to as the Moderators Committee, which consists of the district and committee chairs. That will take place on Thursday, February 5th at 8 p.m. in the Cone Room at Town Hall. And there'll be additional information. I've asked if you have any topics that you would like covered to please contact me, and the sooner the better, please. One of the issues, I have invited representatives of District 8 to receive input from our district and committee chairs on a proposed rule change that they are working on. So that'll be one topic, but there will be others. All right, that concludes. Is there anyone else who would ask to be recognized at this point? All right, that brings us to the call for tonight's meeting. I notified our district and committee chairs that based upon the reports received, I will recommend that we combine items 1 and 2 for voting purposes and take up items 3 and 4 separately. So, is there a motion to suspend the rules to combine items 1 and 2 for voting purposes? All right, it has been moved to suspend the rules to combine items 1 and 2 for voting purposes. That motion requires a 2/3 majority to pass and is not debatable. All those in favor of combining items 1 and 2, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion has carried. So that now comes before us, Princess Urfe, who is the Director of Community Development, with those 2 motions. We'll take them together.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Item number 1 is the Board of Estimate and Taxation's resolution approving the Community Development Block Grant Program Year 2015 budget. And item number 2 is the RTM's resolution authorizing the first selectman to apply for and accept 2015 Community Development Block Grant Program funds to carry out the activities proposed in the action plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Will a member please move the adoption of the 2 resolutions? The resolutions on items 1 and 2 have been moved and seconded. May we have the reports of the committees that considered this? Beginning with Alexis Vulgaris, Chair of our Health and Human Services Committee.
Good evening. The Health and Human Services Committee met last Tuesday with Princess Urfé, the Director of Community Development, to discuss the proposed annual Community Development Block Grant budget for the year 2015, as well as the 5-year consolidated plan for program years 2015 through 19. This is an item that comes before the BET and RTM each year, and the budget needs to be reviewed and approved by both parties before the final application can be submitted and acted upon by the first selectman on behalf of the town. That last part is essentially item number 2 on this evening's call. The CDBG program is a federally funded program through HUD. Item number 1 is the BET Budget Committee's approval for the proposed annual block grant, as well as the approval for the 5-year consolidated plan. And item 2 is authorizing the first selectman to apply for and accept funds on behalf of the town. 2 points of information for this year are, the first one is the consolidated plan is something that HUD requires every 5 years to help project anticipated needs. In the draft copy, this book, of the block grant book that was distributed to all RTM members in December, projected data, mostly around housing issues, can be found on pages 16 and 17, as well as on pages 83 through 98. The second point of information is typically this item comes before the RTM at our October meeting. However, at the request of HUD, we are submitting our application after HUD, which follows the federal fiscal year calendar, has received their fiscal year 2015 formula allocations, which is basically the amount of money that we anticipate receiving. HUD recommended that we started our program year later than January 1st, as that will allow the block grant program funding to submit an annual plan that includes the actual block grant funding allocation amount. In the past, the application was submitted based on projections, and if the projection fell short, then it required the committee to adjust all of the appropriations that they anticipated giving to the awarded grantees. The Community Development Block Grant Advisory Committee, which meets throughout the summer, is the group responsible for reviewing funding applications and making suggestions regarding the allocation of funds. The advisory committee is comprised of 28 representatives from the RTM, BET, Greenwich Housing Authority, the Department of Social Services, as well as other members of the community. 2 members of the Health and Human Services Committee also sit on this advisory committee, Sam Tam and myself. It's anticipated that in 2015, the town will receive approximately $700,000 from HUD. Per HUD guidelines and regulations, 20% of this budget, or about $140,000, is dedicated to administrative expenses. 15%, or about $105,000, is allocated to public service programs, while the remaining 65%, or approximately $455,000, is dedicated to capital improvements such as property rehabilitations and acquisitions. This year, 17 programs applied for public service funding, and the advisory committee recommended funding for 14 of those 17 programs. Most programs received $5,000 in funding, which is the minimum amount. However, 5 were funded at the $10,000 level. When considering how much to allocate to each program, the advisory committee took into consideration multiple factors such as the program's impact within the community, number of individuals served, fundraising capacity of the organization, past block grant support, and did the organization receive any additional grants from either the town of Greenwich or another source. There's also extensive discussion surrounding each allocation. In addition to the public service funding requests, a total of 17 organizations applied for capital improvement funding. Of the 17, the committee recommended funding for 7 programs using the same criteria previously mentioned. For those interested, page 53 of the block grant draft book lists each organization along with the funding amount that was recommended. Our votes on items 1 and 2 were 10-0-0 with districts 3 and 9 absent. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, since we are required to hold a public hearing on these, I will open the public hearing, and we will now continue with our committee reports. Kip Bergweger, Vice Chair of our Legislative and Rules Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, the Legislative and Rules Committee met last Monday, January 12, to take up items 1 and 2 together, and we were assisted by Princess Urfe. As noted, the recommendations were prepared by a committee, and then the advisory committee, and then the report was submitted to the first selectman. We are advised that he approved the report without changing a word, and then it went to the BET for approval. The language in the resolutions is consistent with that which was approved in previous years, although obviously the dates and some of the language changes have been, some of the language has been changed to conform to the current situation. Also last year some language had been omitted, and we moved last year to have that included, and that is in this year's version. The vote on legal order for both items 1 and 2 was 8-0-0 with districts 2, 6, 9, and 10 absent. After the meeting, one of the members of the committee's district asked a question which we then relayed to Princess Urfe, and I believe it's information that it would be of some interest to the RTM. The question was, what are the standards that HUD, what is the formula that HUD uses for the allocations, and how does Greenwich fare compared to other communities? And the program provides, HUD program provides annual grants to 1,209 general units of local government and state government, and it works to ensure decent, affordable housing and to provide services to the most vulnerable members of the community and to create jobs through expansion and retention of business. Towns that are a population of 50,000 or more are deemed to be entitlement communities and are entitled to receive direct grants through this process. HUD uses a formula that's comprised of several measures of community need, including, among other things, the extent of poverty. Greenwich last year received $735,628, which was more than many towns in Greenwich of similar size, such as Danbury, East Hartford, Fairfield, Milford. So I think that just underscores that there are needs in Greenwich that I know every member of the RTM is aware of, but not everyone in the community or in the press is aware of. So we should be keep that in mind when we vote to approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Warner, Chair of our Finance Committee.
Good evening, everyone. You have just heard two reports that are far more complete and detailed than the one I was planning to provide. I would say that when we met on January 12th, we had Princess Urfe with us, and we spent our time ensuring that there was proper community input to the distribution of these dollars that we're considering tonight. On both issues, we voted 12-0-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion on items 1 and 2. All right, there is a public hearing, so any interested individual is invited. Hearing no request to speak, I will now close the public hearing and ask the district chairs to please mark your voting cards, items 1 and 2, and proceed to poll your delegation. Item 3 now comes before us. Jay Domachek, Director of Fleet Department.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen of the RTM, this is item 3. Resolved that the sum of $190,000 be and the same is hereby appropriated from the Capital Non-Recurring Fund to the Fleet Department account Z380 59220-15222 for the purchase of a 100,000-pound lift. This is the same as it appears in the call.
Thank you. Will a member please move the adoption of the resolution? Resolution on item 3 has been moved and seconded. May we have the reports of the committees that considered this item, beginning with Michael Warner, Chair of our Finance Committee.
Good evening, fellow members. The Finance Committee took this up on January 12th, and we had Jay Domasek with us. This is a request to replace one of the lifts that the town has, and what prompted this request is the failure of one of the lift pistons, which the town went immediately to replace. The replacement for the piston was $11,000. After the piston was replaced and the lift was tested, it failed that test. This is a lift that was near the end of its useful life. These lifts have a life of about 12 to 15 years. And we're about year 12. So the question was, like many of us who have, if you own a motor vehicle that's near the end of its useful life and needs a major repair, the issue was whether to buy or not to buy. And we have a request here to replace this lift. The Finance Committee in its discussion was convinced by 2 major items. One is the rampways on the lifts aren't wide enough to accommodate some of the vehicles we have. The tires actually overhang the edge of the rampways, and there have been occasions in the past where large vehicles have actually slipped off of this lift, providing some an unsafe situation. These lifts are used on a regular basis, and this was one of the items for us that was important. The other item was, this is a lift that's near the end of its useful life. The town had planned to replace this lift in the 15-16 budget, and it didn't make it that far. I should also mention that this lift is a bit smaller than the one that failed. The lift that failed was a 120,000-pound lift. This is a 100,000-pound lift. So as a result of our discussion, those big drivers convinced us that we should approve this by a vote of 12-0-0. I would add that in our discussion, what came up was an issue of how the town procures replacements for large items like this. And this this lift will actually be purchased through a co-op arrangement. Typically, one would expect that we would use the normal bidding process, develop specifications, go through the town attorney, and it's quite a involved process. And what we heard was that the town uses a purchasing co-op used by public service organizations, municipalities, etc. And we were not unconvinced that this is a good way to go, but we frankly didn't understand it as well as we thought we should. So we had a motion from our alternate from District 6 who recommended that we appoint a subcommittee to look at how these purchasing co-ops work. And so as a result, we did appoint a subcommittee to take a look with an open mind as to whether these purchasing co-ops, how they affect our community and how useful they are. And so we did appoint such a committee. I don't expect there'll be anything too controversial resulting, but we do want to look at it. If anything comes up, we'll let you know. And our vote, once again, was 12-0-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Hamilton, Secretary of our Public Works Committee.
Ex-secretary, I'm the vice chair. Thank you, Tom. Welcome, members, guests, and new officers of the town. John, it's a pleasure. Hope to get to meet you soon. I am standing in, and did last week, for our chairman of Public Works Committee, Arlene Lamazzo. Arlene, I'm thrilled to report, has successfully negotiated the cardiac halls of New York Presbyterian or some August hospital in New York, and is with us tonight. Congratulations, Arlene. We're glad to have you and welcome you back to Public Works. I think District 6, there she is. Public Works took up item number 3. John Crary, Town Administrator, and Jay Demoschak, Fleet Director, presented. Finance covered most of the major points. I would simply mention that the device is scheduled to be replaced by a slightly less weight-intensive lift, but an entirely different technology known as the parallelogram. It's a surface mount unit. It has less risk of piston failure, is less prone to salt corrosion damage, which apparently was one of the culprits in undermining the lift in question tonight. The lead time to deliver the lift order and deliver will be about 3 months. It takes 1 week to install it. And one question was, what are we doing in the meanwhile with our ineffective lift? And apparently the lift is operable enough to do basic repair and inspection and sort of less intensive but everyday maintenance stuff works, so that the winter maintenance schedule, which is quite intense and where the lift finds a great deal of its use for lift truck, dump trucks, fire trucks, etc., will be at least functional enough to get us through the winter period. The vote on this item was 11-0-0. District 9 was absent. I'll mention quickly that the Fleet Department spends about $2 or $3 million a year on maintenance and equipment. The facility at Indian Field Road, at the corner of exit 4, operates 2 shifts per day. I think 7 days per week. Jay, you can correct me on that, but it's 5 days a week. So I guess you don't want to have a breakdown on the weekend. But there are 400 vehicles in the Fleet Department, so quite busy. There are 8 maintenance personnel. And there are 5 smaller lifts in the facility for lighter vehicles. 4 of the 5 are to be replaced the next 3 years or so. No cost given, but they're significantly less expensive, well under $20,000. I think probably $10,000, $12,000 would be the maximum amount per lift. So not a significant area of concern. The Public Work members were alerted to the BET budget schedule, and specifically to the CIP POCD capital project list. A great many of those, which of those are under the purview of Public Works. In fact, of the total requested amount, not to be spent in 1 year, but requested amount of around $79 million, Public Works has is interested and develops, manages about $55 million worth of those projects. So it's a significant area of focus and will be for your committee. We were alerted to the BET budget schedules, and we have contacted the department to make sure that each member who was assigned a specific operating department of Public Works, we have a team of 2 people for every department, will be alerted as promptly as possible as to when the actual presentation will be taking place. In years past, several of our members have gone to these meetings and have had to wait several hours, up to 5 or 6 hours in some cases, for the right person to make the right presentation. So this is an area we think can be improved and will help us use our time a lot more efficiently. As I said, the vote on the lift was 11-0-0, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Discussion on item 3. Will the district chairs please mark your voting cards, item number 3, and proceed to poll your delegation. I have the result of the vote on the community development block grant items. Those who are Resolutions 1 and 2. Those in favor, 171. Opposed, 0. Abstaining, 1. Those items have carried. I also think it's fair to note, I had, after our last meeting, contacted Barbara O'Neill and Superintendent Bill McCursey about what I perceive to be a lack of adequate lighting in here. And I had actually polled our district and committee chairs, and many agreed. And Mr. Superintendent McCursey did get back to me. He said they went to work and replaced the light bulbs, and the result is obviously much improved. So I am grateful for the responsiveness to that request. All right, item number 4 now comes before us. Our first selectman, Peter Tessie.
Hi. Good evening. Resolved that the town of Greenwich accept a gift valued at $520,000 for the Byram Park Improvement and Beautification Project. Further resolved that the town of Greenwich wishes to once again acknowledge Barbara and Ray Dalio for their gift and continued support for community enhancements.
Thank you. Will the member please move the adoption of the resolution? Resolution on item 4 has been moved and seconded. Michael Warner, Chair of our Finance Committee. Well, would you like to switch the order up?
Good evening, fellow members. We took this up on January 12th. We had Joe Siciliano with us, who walked us through the provisions of this generous gift. Before going into detail, I would recommend to you in the explanos, there's an excellent history of Byram Park, and if you haven't read it, it's enlightening to do so. This is a 30-acre park that attracts about 30,000 people a year right now without a working swimming pool. Joe provided us with some history. In his comments, he also told us that these improvements that are planned for the park were designed to coordinate with any improvements to the swimming pool later on, should that be approved. So he wanted to make that point. He also mentioned that the Dalios had taken out insurance to ensure that this gift would happen, which is something that none of us had thought of, but it sounds like an awfully good idea. Now, these improvements are not vanity improvements. These are infrastructure improvements where actually Mrs. Dalio walked the park with Joe Siciliano, and together they found structural and beautification improvements that add real value to the town and this park. There are actually 4 categories of improvements. One is pruning and tree care, as well as the addition of some flower gardens. And I would say to you that if there's anything that's ever overlooked, that's probably one of the things that's easiest to overlook. And here we are having that as part of this gift. 2, drainage work is being done. The walkways and paths are going to be expanded to be 5 feet wide, and for the first time are designed so that they actually interconnect and link within the park, and one doesn't have to go out and be led to a major thoroughfare as part of your walk through the park. There'll be some stairs replaced, and in addition to the walkways. The third improvement is not insignificant. There's currently a playground on the park. This is a park that does a lot of things. It not only has a beach and a tennis court and a marina and ball fields and, as we well know, a wiffle ball court soon to happen. This is a multi-use park. And the Dalios want to improve the playground that's currently there and bring it up to date. This is a playground that was originally dedicated to Ann Kristoff. It's called the Ann Kristoff Playground, who was a worker in the neighborhood who worked to improve and worked with the town. And and that recognition will remain. Also, in addition to, as you can imagine, what the safety requirements are for playgrounds today, this will be an extensive improvement. And also, little known is that this park has two of the best tennis courts in town. And the reason I say that is that they're protected from the wind, and they're well fenced, and they're going to soon be lighted under this provision, which will make them really terrific. I say that personally as a tennis player. And the only other comment we had in our meeting was, we should all recognize that this gift is not in any way a vanity kind of a thing. This is someone who got involved, Mrs. Dalio, who walked the park, who wanted to make improvements, who wanted to improve our town in a very selfless way. And we should all recognize and thank the Dalio family for that. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Karen Sadekhan with the Parks and Recreation Committee report.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator and members. I think Finance has covered most of the details of the gift. He's discussed that it comes in 3 categories. Just to break it down, there are 3 subtotals. The tree pruning and new planting of trees and flowers totals $110. That's the first improvement. The second is $200,000, which is the site work and restoration, the sidewalk replacement, and the stair replacement. And improvement 3 totals $210, which is the playground enhancement and tennis court upgrades of lighting. And that's the $520,000. Joe Siciliano discussed it in detail with us. He was present with us at our meeting last Tuesday, as was Bruce Spayman, who's the superintendent of Parks and Trees. There were a few other details that were added. Joe was asked about the time to complete the project and compared it to the Bruce Park project, which he said took 12 months. He noted there are no naming opportunities with this gift. A question was asked about the detail of the work in terms of excavation. It will only be surface level excavation, nothing major or deep. Issues about the pool project, will it conflict with it? No, 2 separate things. The pool project will take its own course. It has its own budget process. There's no conflict between these 2 projects, and the pool project will not undo any of this improvement work that is going to be done through this gift. Also noted was some of the suggestions in a historic parks report that was done a few years ago by Martha Lyons will be included in this gift, which is resurfacing of walkways and improved lighting. Questions about the tennis courts suddenly have lighting. How will that impact the neighborhood? How will the timing of them, the mechanism work? Joe noted that they could be controlled by a timer on site, by a timer at the booth, or by a remote control device right from the Parks and Rec Department in Town Hall. If necessary, shields can be installed on the backs of the lights to prevent any disruption to neighbors. This is a fabulous gift. Our vote was 10-0-0 with districts 1 and 8 absent. And on behalf of the Parks and Recreation Committee, I would like to express our thanks to the Dalios for yet another generous gift that impacts so favorably our town's parks. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion on item 4. Will the district chairs please mark your voting cards, item number 4, and proceed to poll your delegation. That being the final item on our agenda tonight, we will need to await the resolution of that vote before we can proceed to adjourn. I do have the result of the vote on item 3, the appropriation for the Fleet Department. Those in favor, 170, opposed 3, abstaining 0. Item 3 has carried. All right, we have the result of the vote on item 4. This is the gift for Byram Park from the Dalios. Those in favor, 172, abstaining 0. I'm sorry, opposed 0, abstaining 1. That item has carried. That being the final business to come before the meeting, this meeting stands adjourned upon unanimous consent. Thank you all for coming, and have a safe trip home.